No, I'm not on cocaine, and if I will scratch my nose a little bit more often than usually, I'm sorry for that. I seem to have some kind of allergic reaction or so. My nose is a little bit infected. I hope you can forgive me that. And I'm also aware of one thing. The Samsung Galaxy Tab A10.1 2016 is not brand new anymore. But I wanted to actually review it right from the start when it was released way more than half a year ago. Just didn't get the chance, and I actually don't understand why. Because for some reason Samsung Germany decided not to hand out any review units to the press agency. Why is that so weird? Because this is a great selling tablet. It costs around 200 euros, about $250 as I've seen on Amazon. And for this, I would actually call it the best 10-inch Android tablet that you can get on the market. And that's why I don't understand why Samsung didn't want other people to know, just releasing out more reviews with review units. But I decided to get it from Cyberport, so thanks for that. And now I can let you know why I actually think this is a way better tablet than I expected it initially. So, let's get into the first thing, the design and build quality. Let's get through the few little complaints that I have. First of all, it's not of the highest build quality because as you can see, it will bend a little bit, but that is not a big issue. Then with 525 grams, it's not the lightest one. The camera does protrude a little bit. And we have capacitive buttons on the front, which are a little bit annoying because this is where I would really like to have my hands. But I just can't because I will always do some accidental touches, and I think throughout the review this will happen quite a lot of times. Sure, I could now just use it the other way around, but then it feels for me weird that the speakers, which in my opinion aren't placed amazingly well as well, are bottom firing, which is what I would like to see. But other than that, I have to say build quality is still fine because the texture here feels really well. It feels very rounded off. The buttons are placed very nicely. We have a micro SD card slot, another camera and so on. On the top we have the micro USB slot, the camera, headphone jack, as I already said, the speakers here on the bottom. And I just think it makes quite a nice job. Yes, it attracts quite a lot of fingerprints, but they can be easily wiped away, so no huge problem. So I still, despite the few negatives that I see, don't really have a problem with that. About the display, it is a 1900 by 1200, so 16 by 10 ratio display. One thing that is a little bit weird that we don't have any display options like we usually have on Samsung devices. Maybe it has something to do that this is not the typical AMOLED display or so, this is a PLS display. This is pretty much only noticeable if you know it, because otherwise I wouldn't really have noticed it. Maybe you notice it that the viewing angles are a little bit weaker. They kind of diminish in terms of brightness a little bit more than an IPS display, but if I wouldn't have known, I wouldn't really have noticed either. And I have to say, it could be maybe a tad sharper, because in this size range there are just high resolution ones out there, but since this is a budget tablet, I have to say this display is fully satisfying after all, because the white point was absolutely fine in my opinion. The black is not super deep, but it's uniform and well enough. And the colors in my opinion are actually nicely calibrated because they aren't as oversaturated as on many AMOLED tablets. And that's why I actually think this is really nice if you watch a lot of YouTube videos and if you just browse the web occasionally. This display fully satisfied me, and I usually have way higher expectations of devices like these, but this actually fully convinced me. Now let's check the speakers, which are firing to the right now. As you have seen, both of them are active, and usually what I did is block one. So you have to little bit fiddle around how you will hold it, but then I have to say the speaker is actually really good because it is in most cases actually loud enough, which is quite good. Yes, it's firing to one side, which is not optimal. I would have definitely preferred on both sides. But if you just use it normally, it's actually sounding very nice, nicely balanced, not thin. That is something very important, not thin or weaker, so actually quite nicely balanced, quite clear highs. Overall, totally fine, no complaints. We have some extra software options that I will maybe get into a little bit later. And the headphone jack is absolutely fine as well, a little bit of above average. The Samsung standard, which is nice to see. And I have no real complaints. I actually like it quite a lot. So let's get into the performance here. Let's get in. Okay, I have to say one thing. Yes, it maybe only has 2 GB of RAM. But honestly, it didn't really bother me as much as I would have expected, because let's launch a few apps. As you can see here, for a $200 tablet, this is absolutely moderate. It's not crazy fast, and I have to actually say one thing that feels weird. I'm using 0.5x animation speed, so it should be a little bit faster, but they still feel a little bit slow, and especially one thing a little bit, see, if you hit the recent apps button, you have this a little bit unnecessary long transition. Maybe that kind of makes up for the speed that it's just not there. But just so we have also rotation here. This is actually one weird thing that I have to point out, because I use this rotation app so I can use apps like, for example, Instagram also in horizontal mode, but the app gets killed regularly. I've seen this on many tablets already, and some not, so I'm not quite sure what I should say about that. But launch times are, in my opinion, absolutely still fine, no complaints here at all. The browsing performance, now you will see that, and this is what I said, you will touch it quite often by accident. But let's get into the scrolling here. As you can see here, the performance in the browser is absolutely nice, and naked browser is just as fine. As you can see here, this for $250, what would you more expect in terms of browsing? This is totally fine, very smooth, very responsive, absolutely nice. And if you go into other apps, you will see the same. And this is absolutely something I did not expect it to run this. As you can see, nice and smooth. Yes, it's not perfect. There are better ones like the Pixel or the Asus ZenPad, but this is totally, and I really mean totally fine. Actually way better than I would have expected. For a price of $200 or $250, this gives me all the performance that I would need from a tablet, because usually what I do is browse the web, check some apps and so on, check Instagram and watch videos. And this works absolutely flawlessly, and actually the 2 GB of RAM didn't really bother me at all, because as you can see, yes, it has to reload sometimes, but it's actually not that bad, because the reloads, I don't really switch too often, and you actually still have great options like, for example, the dual Windows apps and so on. Of course, it's not the NuGet function yet, so you are a little bit more limited, but even though, work really, really nice. And the gaming performance as well is, for this price range, actually completely respectable. You get moderate frame rates, it doesn't really get warm, it's quite an efficient SoC. So you can play all the games, not on the highest level, of course not, but you can get like 25, 30 frames in all games. It's quite consistent, doesn't really have any break-ins and so on. So nothing else to say, I'm quite pleased here as well. But now let's get to the highlight here, not the charge time, which is, and you will see this is TLDC, which means too long, don't care. I expect it would have ended at about 5 hours. I've tried a little bit of a faster charger, didn't help. So expect about 5 hours of charging time, which is quite a long time, but the battery is huge and the battery life is amazing. Because over the course of one day, if I would actually use a tablet as much as I would need to cover it in one day, I would actually expect to get about 14 hours of use. And this was with a brightness of 30%, which was more than bright for enough indoors, and I used my device a little bit brighter. And I had actually values of, for example, 3-4 days with 11 hours plus of use, which is especially respectable because the standby range is about 5 to 6% a day. And this, in my opinion, I think from what I remember, this is the best battery life I've ever seen on any Android tablet so far. I never really reached 10 hours plus, but having 13, 14, or maybe even more hours with my use, which is even a little bit higher than on some other ones, wow, this is fantastic. Okay, let's switch and check the software. Not really too much to say here because this is running, as we can see here, on Android 6.0.1. Oh, and sorry, if I go a little bit closer, you won't have the checkerboarding as bad, but I'm really sorry. This is completely stock, so this is the stock launcher, as you can see. You can see all the apps, everything's fine. You have the quick settings, of course you can rearrange it. Double swipe to see more of them, it is fine. And in terms of options, you pretty much get what you get these days on all the Android tablets. So for example, in the sound options, we will see the following, which is actually nice because in the sound quality effects, we have a system-wide equalizer that you can use with surround, concert hall, the UHQ upscaler equalizer. You have a little bit of an advanced one if you want to, adapt sound if you want to adjust it to your headphones and your hearing. Of course, the regular sounds, we have, as I said, dual window, notifications can be managed here, do not disturb mode is of course here. For some reason, as I said, there is no option to change the display settings and so on. Under advanced features, we have pop-up view. Yeah, I guess you know this from the Samsung Galaxy S7 or similar phones. Palm swipe to capture, I really like that because you just have to do this and it makes a screenshot. I still like this feature, and I know I don't actually get, maybe it's patented, why no one else has this. But other than that, you get pretty much standard options. You get a theming engine that is very powerful. You can really download great themes. It will get NuGet, I'm pretty sure. I'm not I don't really doubt it because I have no confirmation yet, but it just has to. And even if not, in my opinion, NuGet didn't really bring too much to the table. Yes, the dual window from stock Android is a little bit better, But if I would have to live with this software until this device dies, it would be still absolutely fine. No real complaints here. And since I won't talk about the camera that is protruding, since I don't ever review a camera on a tablet, I would say let's get to the pros and cons. Start off with the first thing, build quality. Absolutely fine, no problems here at all. It feels good, maybe a little bit heavy, but I can't complain for this price, it feels good. Yes, it does flex, but I don't care for this price, absolutely not. Yeah, no, it feels great, top, fine. A good display. A little bit of high resolution would have been nice, but I can't really complain because especially watching movies and videos, TV shows, YouTube and so on, I had no complaints because I really liked the calibration on it and the speakers sounded at least quite good. Almost very good. If they would have been maybe stereo, definitely very good. If not, maybe even great. But then we have the fantastic battery life, a very good software. I still like what they did with TouchWiz this time and for the last few iterations. No complaints at all. And I still think the value is good. For some reason it costs about $250 on Amazon as I've seen, but usually in Europe it's around 225 euros, which is in my opinion absolutely fine for the package that you get, especially with this amazing battery life. But not everything is great, so let's check what is not that great. Yes, as I've said, it is a little bit more heavy. Not a huge concern, especially for me because I actually use all my tablets in a kind of holder, where like kind of swivel arm, so I don't really have it in my hands too often. Then the camera protruding, not necessary, but that's why it's in brackets, because it doesn't really impact the usual in-use hand experience. Capacitive buttons, this is one of the more annoying things. You will just have to get used to how you hold it and not to touch it. This was something that, yeah, definitely should have been a little bit more on the smart side, but it isn't. The display could have been a tad sharper, but I just can't accept it because after all, it is a budget device and we can't expect to get for $250 or $200 maybe a Quad HD display or something like that. So I totally get it and it's totally fine. Stereo speakers on the bottom, but at least they sound good, so I can forgive them that as well. And the long charge time should be a problem for people who maybe use it like insane people and can't wait to charge it, because if I can use this for, I think at least in normal use, 3 or 4 days, waiting 5 hours more is not the problem. So that's why I would say final conclusion. I've said it already. In my opinion, this is the tablet to go for under 300, actually closer to 200. I guess on deals you will find it for this price. And it just offers a great package. It doesn't really have any major flaws. The overall experience was fine. The performance and all the qualities were at least on a good level. Of course, you can't always expect very good or great since it is a budget tablet after all. And I just don't see anything that I've reviewed that I would know in this around price range that offers you anything close to that or be even better. Because just check my recently reviewed, it was the Lenovo Tab 310 Plus. Cost as well $200. Display was way weaker. The battery life was weaker, the speaker, pretty much everything was weaker, and this is great. If you find something actually else in this price range that you would prefer, let me know in the comments, because I simply don't see that, and that's maybe a benefit or an advantage for Samsung, that the market in this price range isn't all that strong with good competitors. What I will review though, just as a heads up, the Lenovo Tab 3 Plus, the one with the thick hinge with the book style, because that one is priced at around 300, so a little bit more, has though the Quad HD display and could be better. But this will have to be shown first. But for right now, this one is really nice, and I once again have to thank Cyberport for giving me the chance to review this, since I couldn't get it from Samsung, which is still a weird decision that I don't get. But other than that, if you have any questions, leave them down below. And if you like this review, thumbs up, and a subscription would definitely be helpful. But I wish you a nice time next time. Bye.